Okay, so today's tutorial is going to be all about making the floppy cat. Now, in the prior one that I did, it was a live tutorial and it spans across several different days. So today we're going to do the abridged version and get this done more quickly. So we're going to start our floppy cat. We're using acrylic yarn here as opposed to the blanket yarn which was used in the last video. I'm actually going to use a smaller hook. This size is a C or 2.75 millimeter. In the pattern, however, it goes up to size E. So whatever is most comfortable for you, it will just change a little bit in the sizing of your floppy cats, at the end. But it's not a big deal. Depends also on your tension. So for me, I have very tight tension, so I'm just sizing it down. I just want to avoid any gaps and such in my work. So I'm going to go ahead and start off the first leg here. I'm going to make a double magic ring. So I wrap it around my fingers like so. I go under the first two loops, over the last one, and I pull forward to make an A. Now I'm going to pinch the side of the circle here, and I'm going to slip my other finger out. So I've got my ring here, and my back fingers are holding the tension, okay? So I'm going to yarn over and then pull through. That's just going to secure our loops. Now we're going to go diving into the center, and we're going to make 6 single crochets into the magic ring, okay? So we go through to the back, yarn over, pull it forward, yarn over, and pull through all loops, okay? So again, going in through to the back, yarn over from the back, pull forward the second loop, yarn over again, that's your third loop, and pull that through the other 2. That's a single crochet, and we're just doing this into the magic ring, and we're going to put 6 in there, okay? So keep doing that. Again, going into the back, yarning over, pull forward your second loop, yarn over, and pull through, okay? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So once you've got your 6 stitches there, you can see them all there. It looks like the little V, right? Each one of those is a stitch. We're going to start to pull the tail, and for the double magic ring, since you have 2 loops, one will start to go in. That's the one you want to pull. So go ahead and pull that one first. Whichever of the 2 starts to go in first, pull that till it's secured inside. That will close the loop. Now you have one more loop, so you're going to pull the end, and that will close completely. So it just gives it a double the circles inside, right? So double the tension in that center ring, in hopes that it will prevent your circle from ever opening and leaving a gap there, okay? So we're going to place our stitch marker as we are starting our next round. In the next round, we're going to be increasing in each stitch all the way around. That means 2 single crochets into each stitch from the prior round. Okay, so there's 1. I'm going to go into that same space right there, yarn over, pull forward a loop, yarn over, and pull through, okay? All right, so we're going to keep going around doing an increase in every one of those 6 stitches from the prior round. So at the end of round 2, you end up with 12 stitches. Okay, so let's just keep going together here. We're just putting 2 in each. We're doing our increases at this point. Okay, this is the last stitch of the round. So you'll have 12 stitches. If you want, you can count back from the hook. You'd start here and that V. So you would go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12 is the one with the stitch marker. Okay, so now replace your stitch marker. The round 3 is going to be a single crochet in the next one, and then an increase. And we will repeat that pattern all the way around. So in the next one, we're going to do a single crochet. And then in the next, we're doing an increase. Okay, so 2 in the 1, right? And just keep doing that all the way around. This is just evenly building up our piece here so that it will still be flat at this point, because we're just evenly building up those increases, right? So at the end of round 3, you should end up having 18 stitches. And you can always count at the end of each round if that helps to make sure you're staying on track. And as you get more and more used to crocheting, you end up counting less and less, right? All right, so that's round 3. So 1, 2, and 3. You can see them there. We're going to replace our stitch marker. Rounds 4 and 5, we are just single crocheting in each stitch around. So we're keeping it at the 18 stitches total in each round. And we're just working all the way around with putting one in each to maintain that size and to start building up the walls of the paw for our floppy cat. So I'm going to let you guys do rounds 4 and 5 on your own, and I will meet you back at the end of round 5 and we'll start round 6 together. Okay, so we finished round 5. We're going to go ahead and start round 6, and that's going to be the pattern 4 single crochets and an invisible decrease. So you're starting off putting 4 single crochets in the next 4 stitches, or basically 1 single crochet, excuse me, in the next 4 stitches. We're not increasing that much. So 1, 2, 3, 4. So we just worked as usual. Now we're going to do an invisible decrease. So for those, you go into the front loops only. And we've just got 1 loop on our hook now, going under that first loop through the center of the V, then go into the second, underneath the second here on the next stitch, through the center of the V, yarn over, pull through those 2 loops, yarn over, and pull through the last 2 loops. Okay, so that's an invisible decrease, and it just prevents a bump from really being there where the decreases would normally be. So it's a lot less noticeable. And then we're going to keep doing that pattern. So I'm single crocheting for 4 stitches, just like that. And then I'm going to do another invisible decrease again, going under the first loop, then under the next loop. On the next stitch, yarn over, pull through the loops, yarn over, and pull through the last 2 loops there. Okay, and then I'm going to do that again. 1, 2, 3, 4. And 1 more invisible decrease, just as we've been doing, to finish off round 6. All right, replace your stitch marker. I'm going to let you do round 7 on your own. It is just a single crochet round, so I'll meet you back at the end of this round. All right, so we have finished the round. I'm replacing my stitch marker now. And the next one, we're going to do 3 single crochets and an invisible decrease. So we've got 1, 2, 3, and an invisible decrease, and doing that all the way around to the end of this round. Okay, once you finish that, go ahead and replace your stitch marker, and the next round, again, we're just single crocheting in each stitch around. So I will let you go ahead and finish that round. That is round 9, and I will meet you back for round 10. Okay, once you've gotten here, you can go ahead and stuff it. Now I have some leftover Bernat blanket extra thick. It's like giant blanket yarn, and it works really well for stuffing. So since I already had that in my little scraps bin there, I'm going to use that as my stuffing. Just saves a little bit of my stuffing for something else. And see how nice that stuffs, and it's not coming out because the stitches are so tight. That's such a big cord, it'll stay in there nice. And yeah, you don't see it at all. All right. So once you've done that stuffing, let's go ahead and continue on. So round 10, we are doing 2 single crochets and invisible decrease. So we're just kind of slowly closing our leg up here. And then the invisible decrease. Now with these floppy legs, you want to keep them floppy, which means that you're really only going to be stuffing where we stuffed already. So now this upper part of the leg is not going to be stuffed because that's what's going to give it the floppy effect so that he can lay down or stand up, which is what we want there for the end once he's all put together. So the stuffing we're done with. We don't need to add any more. So we're just doing here, we're going to do 1 more single crochet and 1 more invisible decrease to finish off this round, and then we will start the next round. Round 11, a single crochet all the way around. So I will let you guys do that on your own, and I will meet you back for round 12. Okay, for round 12, we're doing a single crochet and an invisible decrease, and we're going to follow that pattern all the way around. This is the last decreasing round. We are just about done with this leg. So let's just go and finish off here. I'm down to doing a single crochet, invisible decrease, and then I'll have 1 more to do. So let's take our stitch marker off, because what we're doing now is we are flattening our paw as such, and you should be down to 6 stitches all the way around. So what we're doing is we're going to flatten them and work across this circle here to do 3 single crochets connecting the 2 sides together. All right, so we're going into this next stitch. Then you're going to want to find the other stitch in the back here, just like so. Okay, so you see how that's going across. Okay, yarn over and pull forward your loop. That's 2 loops, and then yarn over, pull through. That's your single crochet. Do the same in the next one, going into the next stitch here in the back, yarning over, pulling forward that second loop, yarn over, pull through, and then in this last one, so this is another way to basically decrease, but we're just single crocheting across, and that's connecting those 2 sides. And you see the 3 braids, 1, 2, 3, for the stitches that we just finished. And that's completely closed off our paw here. So also too, in order to finish off, you can cut away the end. This last loop, you're going to bring it open a little bit so you can pull the tail through the loop and then just pull tight, and that will tie off the end for you. So on your own, I need you to go ahead and make 3 more of these. So you can backtrack in the video if you want to work again with me. But on your own, you're going to make 3 more. So you should end up with 4 paws total. And then we'll move on to the next piece, which is going to be his tail. Okay, so we're back to do the tail. Now, if you wanted to have a little different color on the end of the tail, you can do the first round in that color. Just making sure that by round 3, that you're at the end of round 3, you would change to the other color, okay? But for mine, I'm just doing a solid color. So you will start with a magic ring, or a double magic ring in my case, and we're going to put 4 single crochets into that. So I'm going under the first 2, up and over the last, bring in my A forward here, pulling my fingers out, yarning over, and pulling that slip knot through, so that way we've got our little loops. I'm just putting a single crochet 4 times into the center of all that loopy bits right there. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Now I'm going to start pulling one tail, find the one that goes in first, pull that nice and tight, then go ahead and pull the other one tight, and that finishes off your loop. Okay. All right, so we're going to go ahead and place our stitch marker. And the next row, row 2, or round 2, excuse me, we're going to do a single crochet and then an increase 2 times to give us a total of 6 stitches on the round, okay? So the first one is a single crochet. Here we go. And now let's do an increase together. It's just building up the tail just a little bit. Not much, just a couple more extra stitches. So next one is going to be a single crochet, and then the last one will be another increase. Okay, let's replace our stitch marker. And on round 3, if you are planning to change colors to have a different color at the tip versus the rest of the tail, you'll do that at the end of this round. Okay, so round 3 is just a single crochet in each, with the option to change colors in the end stitch, all right, or in the last stitch of this round. I will not be changing colors. I'm sticking with the orange color here, but if you are, then you'll just do a color change, which basically in this case would be going in. If you were doing the color change, you would go in, yarn over with the orange or whatever your color is. Then you would grab the other color, whatever color you're going to use. So just to show you here, I just grabbed a piece of purple here. Then you would yarn over here with the purple or whatever other color you're using, and then pull through, and then continue on now with the purple. So leaving these tails behind, you could tie those 2 together in the back or fasten them off, but you definitely want to knot it in some way so it won't come undone. Okay, so that's your optional color change. I'm not doing that though. I'm going to pull this back out again and just finish this stitch off with my orange, this last one here. So let me Just redo that last stitch. Okay, perfect. All right, so I'm going to let you finish the tail. Now you can make it as long as you want. It's all just single crocheting around in whatever color you're now working on. So I used a total of 14 rounds. All right, so that mine was rounds 4 through 14, single crochet all the way around, and just keep on going, okay, until the tail ends up being the length that you think you're going to want. I'll meet you at the end of the 14th round. Okay, so once you've done your 14 rounds, or however big you are making your tail, go ahead and do a slip stitch in the next. So you're just yarning over, pulling forward that second loop, but just pull that through the first one. So you should have one loop on your hook that gives you that, and we'll leave a tail long enough to stitch the tail to the back of our kitty cat. All right, so there's your tail. Set that aside. The next thing we're going to do is we are going to make the head. All right, so for the head, you need to get your safety eyes now. We will be stopping at part of the head here to put them in. So for these, I use 6 millimeters, but you could use 5 or, 7, 8, depending on how big yours turns out. Just kind of match it to what is your preference, all right? But I'm going to go ahead and use 6 millimeter safety eyes, just a pair of those. And those are going to go between rows 8 and 9 on our head. So let's go ahead and get started working up our head. So we start off again with our magic ring or double magic ring, just as we have been doing. Okay, we're going to do 6 single crochets into the magic ring to start. 4, 5, and 6. All right, so start to pull one tail, find which one's going in first, pull that loop to connect, and then pull the final loop nice and tight. Place your stitch marker and get ready to start round 2. All right, so we're going to start building up the head, and that means increasing evenly. So to start round 2, we're just, again, increasing all the way around, just as before when we did the paws, right? So let's go ahead and just do 2 single crochets into each of the prior round stitches. That's going to end the round with 12 stitches after this one, okay? So go ahead and do that now, and I will meet you back at the next round. Okay, so we've done the first 2 rounds. Go ahead and replace your stitch marker. Now we're going to go single crochet and then an increase, and repeat that pattern all the way around. So we'll do another one together, and then I'll let you guys do that rest on your own. So 1 single crochet, then we did our increase, and we'll continue that pattern to the end of this round. Okay, so now replace your stitch marker. Now we're going to do 2 single crochets and an increase, and we'll repeat that pattern all the way around as we build up to the size of head that we want our floppy cat to have. So again, doing 1 single crochet, then do another in the next, then do your increase, right? All right, so go ahead and finish up this round doing your 2 single crochets and then an increase around. All right, so once you finish round 4, we'll start round 5. We're still making this larger now. So we're going to do 3 single crochets, 1, 2, 3, and then an increase. And that's the pattern that we'll do all the way around. Okay, let's do another one. So there's 1, 2, 3, and then an increase, and follow that all the way to the end of this round. Okay, so we're replacing the stitch marker now, and we are going to do our final increasing round. So round 6 is 4 single crochets, 1, 2, 3, 4, and an increase in the 5th one there. Okay, so we're going to finish this round doing that same pattern. So let's do another one. 1, and then the next 2, and the next 3, in the next 4, and then in that last one we're going to do 2 in 1, or an increase, right? All right, so we're gonna just keep doing that all the way around. I'll meet you at the end of round 6. Okay, so once you have finished with round 6, we're gonna go ahead and start round 7. So for rounds 7 through round 9, you're gonna do single crochets in each stitch around. And when we get to round 10, you can make the option of working a nose in a different colored yarn. So in my case, it would be a pink or a peachy tone for the nose, but whatever color works for your kitty cat. But in round 10, you'll be able to switch that over and we'll make the nose that way, working it into the stitches. The other option is that you just continue on with the orange or whatever your color, your base color is, and you can then go back with some little triangle of felt and just like hand embroider or stitch a little bit. You could do that. You could even take some altering color of yarn and you could do cross stitches for the nose. You could do some straight stitches to create that triangular shape. So there's a lot of options when it comes to doing the nose. So I am going to show you though how to change the color and just work up making the nose onto the face in the round here. So that's going to be what we'll show today. All right, so I'll meet you back when we're going to be starting round 10, which is our nosy round. All right, I'll meet you back momentarily. Okay, so we have finished up through round 9. We're now at round 10. For round 10, we need to make sure we have our second color if you are going to be changing color with me. Otherwise, you're just going to be single crocheting around for the next couple more rounds, okay? Through round 12. But for me, I'm going to do the nose right now. So let's get started on that. So we're going to be immediately changing the color here. So we're going to go in, yarning over with the current first color. So pulling forward that second loop. Now grab your second color, and I'm just using this kind of creamy tone for my orange cat. And you're just going to pull, you're yarning over with that one, and then you're just pulling that through. Okay. You can tighten the orange in the back there. Just drop it back here. You're going to use it in just a moment because we'll be switching back. You can lay the tail of the cream tone over your yarn. So now that we've got our new color, I'm going to do something a little bit different than I did in the last tutorial if you watched the last one. And in the next 3 stitches when we do with this cream tone for the nose, we're going to work in the back loops only to leave that little ridge of the nose, just to make it a more straightened stitch. So we're going to go in through the center here of our next stitch, through to the back. Okay, I'm just actually at this point, I'm going to just lay the tail to the back there, yarn over, pull forward your second loop, yarn over and pull through. Now what I would recommend, since we're not going to be carrying this tail, is just tie it to the orange one, and then you can just tuck the tail onto the inside of your cat. So you just tie a couple knots here just to secure that end on the inside of your work. And then you can just leave it there. We'll be taking this yarn and jumping it across here momentarily. Okay, so we're still on with our nose color. We're going to go and do 2 more single crochets into the next 2 stitches through the back loops only, leaving this little ridge here. Okay, and in that 3rd stitch, going again through the back loops only, pull forward a loop. Now we're going to switch back to the orange. So drop your other color, pick back up the first color, and finish that off with that first color there, okay? Now we're going to be going back into both loops. So we're done with the back loops. We're just going to go into both loops here, and we're just going to go finishing off this round with single crochets. All right. We're going to need that cream tone because we're going to make the nose into a T shape. So we're going to need it for 1 more stitch on the next round, but I will meet you at the end of this one and we'll finish off that nose and continue on with our floppy cats. Okay, so once we finish the round, let's replace our stitch marker here. Now in the next round, we're going to start off with the orange and we're going to do 2 single crochets, okay? So there's 1, then we're going into that next cream tone one, right? or pink or whatever color you're using. And in this next one, in the second one, we're going to drop the orange and pick back up our second color. Okay, so yarn over with your second color and pull through those 2 loops. Now we're going to go into the middle stitch. All right, another cream tone, yarn over, pull your second loop forward here, then drop that one, pick back up your first color, and yarn over and pull through. That's giving us our triangular shaped nose. Now we go into that last cream tone. These are again through both loops. You're not doing the back loops anymore. All right, yarn over and pull through. So there is your triangular shape. And then you can just continue on as we've been doing. And I'll meet you back at the end of, remember, round 12, because we're on round 11, but the next round is also single crochet around. So we're continuing on with the orange. So you can tie off, cut away and tie off the 2 cream tones or whatever color you did for the nose. Tie those together on the inside just to make sure they're fastened off, or weave them in, whichever is your preference. And then continue on. So I will meet you at the end of round 12, and we will start doing our decreasing rounds. All right, so we finished round 12, so now we're going to start round 13, and this is our first decrease round. And just as we evenly increase to do the top part of the head, we're going to slowly decrease to do the bottom part of the head, okay? So we're going to do 4 single crochets. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, and then do an invisible decrease. So that's worked through the front loops only. Again, that's underneath the first loop here, then underneath and up through the middle of the second loop, yarn over, pull through those 2 loops from those 2 stitches, yarn over and pull through those last 2. Okay, then we're going to keep repeating that pattern all the way around. So let's do another one together. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, and then we're going to go ahead and do another invisible decrease. There we go. And then just keep doing that all the way to the end of the round, and I will meet you back for round 14. Okay, so we finished that round, and now we're starting round 14. We're going to do 3 single crochets and an invisible decrease. So there's 1, 2, 3 single crochets, and then an invisible decrease, and we're going to do that same pattern as we decrease evenly all the way around. So 1, 2, 3, and then an invisible decrease, and continue that on. I will meet you at the end of round 14. We're going to be attaching the eyes before it gets too tight to do that, okay? So I'll meet you back at the end of this round. Okay, so in my original Floppy Cat, when I first made this and I didn't have the nose here, I did put the eyes between rounds 8 and 9. So you count from the top, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9, which would be 1 row up. I want this one to look more chibi, so I'm going to actually make it go between rounds 9 and 10, which is giving basically in line with this the front loops that we left behind here at the top of the nose. Okay, so I've already attached one eye here, and I'm going to do the same distance from the other side of the nose, and for that I'm skipping this first stitch here, or this first little gap. I'm going to go into the second one from the nose. Okay, just wiggle it. This is again a 6mm eye, pair of eyes rather. So I'm putting them a little closer together than I've done before, but I think it's going to be really cute. Next, I'm going to get the back and place the stitch marker back on. And I have a handy dandy tool here that has a soft side on one and the hole to hold the back post on the other. This is just to help my hands, especially with these smaller ones. And then you can just squeeze and it will push it down below the little ridge there, so that way it's secured and it's not going anywhere. And it's nice because the pad makes it so that it doesn't scratch your eyes, which is amazing. Okay, so here is the eyes of my floppy cat. The next part we need to do is the embroidery on the face. So what you're going to need is one needle that has your full 6 strands of embroidery thread and have it knotted on one end with the needle on the other. Then the second needle has just 2 strands of black thread, again knotted on the end, and then you've got your needle on the other end, okay? That's going to help us to shape the mouth, and this is going to be for the mouth and the whiskers, okay? So first we're going to come and do the whiskers beside the eyes, right? So we're going to come up between stitches here, or rather splitting the stitch, right? So that way, if you can see where the needle's coming up here, you don't want to come through the gaps because that knot will just come out. You want it to stay in the back, or in the inside rather, of your head of your floppy cat. So now when I pull this, see how it's stuck between the plies of the stitches, so it's not going to go anywhere. That's what we want. All right, so you're going to be doing as many whiskers as you want. I normally do about 3. I do a longer one here. I'll come down a couple rows below. Okay, these are just straight stitches, you guys. All right, just straight stitches, nice and easy. So you can do 2, you can do 3, whatever floats your boat. Then come back one more round down here if you're going to do 3. Okay, so that's 2. So you could stick it with 2. It's looking more and more like Hobbs from Calvin and Hobbs. Anybody remember that comic? I love that comic. All right, so you could do a 3rd one here. I think I might just leave it with the 2 actually. So I'm just going to keep those 2. So I'm going to go back in to the inside of my work here. Now, when you're doing the embroidered details, you can do one of 2 things. You can cross over and just do the other side if you like. You can just go across, do the other whiskers, or you can tie it off on the inside and then knot the end again and then go over here. Sometimes when you cross over on the inside of your work, can actually pull if it's too tightly done, and that can make your piece pucker in different ways. So I don't want that to be the case, so I'm going to go ahead and tie it off on the inside. Okay, so then we're going to do the same on the other side, making sure that we're keeping about even distance between the eyes and the whiskers, and that our whiskers are just about the same length, just so that they look more uniform that way. And one more here, because I'm just going to do the 2. Now at this point as well, you guys can also, if you want your cat to have any striping, like if you're making a gray tabby cat, for example, and you want it to have some darker gray striping, you can do that here as well. You can have some lines that come across the head. So you could do like a longer line here and then a couple shorter lines on either side. So now is when you might want to add those extra stripes, but those are just personal preference. So totally up to you. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and tie off on the inside. And then let's cut this one away. All right, so now that we've done the eyes, then we got the nose done, we've got the whiskers done. Next part is to do the mouth. All right, so we're going to be coming up at the bottom of the V-shaped part of the nose, okay? So that is splitting a stitch right there. So that way our knot is going to be tethered into the inside of our work. So what we're going to be doing is we need the smile to go to either side. Okay, so you could do 1/2. That would actually be pretty cute. You could do a half smile, or you can have it coming out both sides. We need to take it, have it come over. We'll have it come over here. All right, so it's going to go basically one row above to where we want the smile to end. All right, So again, you can leave it that way, but what I'm going to do is take my other strand now. So see, I've got my thicker strand of black up here just to hold it. Now I've got my 2 strands of black here, and I'm going to use this to go around to tether this into the shape that I want it to be. All right. So again, splitting some stitches here just to keep that knot to the back. Let's start here. Okay, so now that we're coming up, we're going to go around that thread and go back down into the same spot that you're coming out of, and that will then bring our stitch there down. And that's our goal. So we want to bring it down so he's smiling more. Okay, and you can take as many as you need to get the shaping that you want on your mouth. But this also just keeps it tethered a little bit better than just leaving it open, and so if anything kind of tries to grab onto it, it makes it a little bit more secure. All right, so for this one I'm going to do a little bit different. Normally what I would do is just have the 2 coming up, right? So just like this. So just having one starting in the center, doing a little arc on one side, and then coming back to the center and doing an arc on the other side. But I just really like this cheeky smile, so I'm going to go ahead and keep what I've got here. But I'm going to put one more little line just to really make it cheeky. And this is going to give him this little cheek, kind of gives it a little cheek look to it, see? This is one of the favorite mouths I have on a lot of my characters, so that's what we're going to do, just like that. So it's a little half smile, right? So again, you can definitely bring the smile over onto the other side if you want, or just have it on as a side smile like this, all right? You can do anything else you want to customize. You can outline the nose if you want. Even as I was saying before, you can do additional stripes along the head if you're interested in doing that. But otherwise, if you're happy with your face now, then it's time to actually continue on with the crocheting. So let's get back to it. First though, let's tie off our threads into the inside of our work. And to do that, you just pick up some of the back stitches, making sure not to get all the way through the stitch because you don't want to see it on the front. And you just pull, and before you pull all the way through, you go through that loop and then pull, and do that a couple of times just to really fasten it off before you cut away the excess thread. There we go, and cut that away. Perfect. So you're done with the threads. Now we're back to our crocheting, so you're going to need your crochet hook. We're going to begin working on round 15. So we're going to be doing 2 single crochets and then an invisible decrease. Okay, so we're going to do 2 single crochets. This is the second one, and an invisible decrease, and we're doing that same pattern all the way around as we continue to close up the head. Okay, so now we're going to stuff, and I'm going to use the same things that I used for his paws, which are this Bernat blanket, extra thick cord type yarn here. Once you've stuffed, you're going to do round 16, which is single crochet and then invisible decrease. So single crochet and then invisible decrease, and repeating that pattern all the way around as we continue to close the head. Single crochet, invisible decrease. All right, I will meet you at the end of that round, and we will do our final round to close the head. Okay, if we need to do any more stuffing, now's the time to do it because we're going to be closing up the head. So in the last round of our head here, round 17, we're going to be just invisible decreasing all the way around. So at the end of this round, you're going to end up with the same amount that we started with, which is 6. And then we will do the final closing off. I'll show you how to do that. So go ahead and just invisible decrease all the way around, and I will meet you at the end to close the gap. Okay, so we have our little gap here. We're going to do a slip stitch in the next to fasten off. All right, pull out that loop there. Go ahead and cut a tail long enough to stitch our way through to close this gap. We're going to pull this out a little bit and pull the tail through the loop. All right, and that fastens this off for us. All right, so I've got myself a tapestry needle here, or a yarn needle, whatever you want to call it. And we're going to weave through the front loops only to close this gap. So I'm going to go from the outside through that V in the center. So again, front loops only. All right. Then from the center in the next stitch back to the outside. Do you see how we did that? Okay, so this is going to be weaving our tail. Then again, from the outside to the inside, through the front loop. Then from the inside to the outside, through the front loop of the next stitch. And gently pull, don't pull tight yet. Okay, there's another one here. So again, outside to in, inside to out. That's the last 6 stitches of our round 17. And then now you can go ahead and close, and that's going to close up that gap. So then you can just take your yarn needle here and go back into the center of the body, coming out somewhere nearby, and gently tug. Okay, so that's going to sort of flatten the area, which is perfect because we need to attach our legs to this head. And then what I like to do is, just to secure this even further, I pick up a stitch, the full stitch, but make sure it's the full stitch of one, okay, that you didn't split it or anything. And then before I pull it through, I go through this loop, and that ties my thread now to this stitch. So I lift it up to see where the gap is, go into the gap, come out somewhere else, and this is going to tuck in that little knot. So you just gently pull it, pulling that knot to the inside of our work, okay? And that's the end of the head. So we can cut away our tail, and then just take your needle here and just kind of wiggle it, and that'll pull the tail onto the inside of the head. So there's our little bean head. All right, and then next up, we've got our tail, we got our feet, but we do need our ears, okay? So we're going to do the ears next. So when we're ready to start our ears, we're going to start with a magic ring or double magic ring. Okay, so we're bringing our A forward here. So then we slip knot it, and then now we can do 4. Now we do 4 single crochets into the magic ring. 1, 2, 3, 4. Gently pull that tail, whichever one starts to go in first. You're going to grab that loop and pull that first. Then grab your other tail here, and then we'll just pull that nice and tight. Place your stitch marker. We'll start round 2, which is a single crochet and then an increase. All right, so we're going to do a single crochet in this first one, and then an increase in the second. And then we'll do the same pattern again one more time. Single crochet, and then an increase. Then replace your stitch marker. Round 3, we're going to do 2 single crochets and an increase 2 times. So 1, 2, and an increase. Replace your stitch marker, and on round 4 we're doing 3 single crochets and an increase. So we're just increasing evenly here, and then we'll be flattening the ear to make our triangle shape. And in the last round, round 5, we're going to do 4 single crochets and an increase 2 times. Three, 4, and an increase, and one more time, slip stitch in the next, finish off, leaving a tail for sewing, then put the tail through the loop and pull. Okay, so as you can see, we have finished all the pieces of our floppy cat. You should have 4 legs, 2 ears, a tail, and his head that's already got the details on. So the next thing that we need to do is just to get a little triangle piece of felt. Okay, so you could have done this as well for the nose, and I would suggest not as long of a nose, but you can kind of get an idea of what that would have looked like as well, if you weren't doing the stitch along nose as we did here. All right, so you're going to need that and a piece of just regular thread. So I just cut this off of here, and then I tie the 2 ends together, and that gives you a double strand right here, right? So that's what we're going to use to do some stitching, sew on the triangles, and then we'll start sewing everything together, okay? And we are going to come up through the back side of the ear. Make sure you're going through stitches, not the in-between spaces, because that way the knot on the end of your thread will stay on the inside of the ear. All right, so now that we've come up, see the knot on the inside of the work there? We're just going to whip stitch around the ear to tether it down. So you're just picking up the top stitching, going back underneath the pink felt, coming out. Make sure you don't catch any of your thread here. And then also make sure that both strands, since you've got a double thread here, that both strands go through. And then you're just going to keep going all the way around the triangle, fastening it to the ear. Once you get back to the very beginning of the triangle, make your needle go through to the back side of the ear. Okay. There is the little triangle. Mine is a little bit wonky, but that's okay. There we go. All right, and then you're going to tie it off on the inside of the ear. You can have it next to the other knot if you want, but you're just picking up some of the back of the ear stitches here. See that? You're not going all the way through. You won't see the strand on the front of the ear. You're just tying it basically onto the inside of the ear. All right. So I usually do this a couple times. So I go through, I start to pull until it makes a loop, go through the loop, and then pull it to make your knot. All right, so do that a couple of times, and then you can go ahead and cut this one away and do the other ear on your own. And you don't need this strand here that was in the inside of the ear. So you can cut that away as well. And then I will meet you back when we are going to be sewing everybody together. I finished doing the little inner triangles of the ears. So now you're going to go and look at the top of your floppy cat. And I usually start sewing these. This is the magic ring here in the middle, around that magic ring. So this ear will be on this side of the magic ring, and the other one will then go on the other side, leaving a little space, that magic ring space in the middle, okay? So just make sure it is where you want it to be. If you go down further, it's going to be kind of out a little far, but that could be the style that you want, you know, go for it. But this is where I'm going to put my ear. And you're keeping the ear flat, you're not stuffing it, and you're just going to go through the head, and we're whip stitching here. So when you look at the ear, you're going to grab whatever the next stitch is. Do you see that? So you're going to grab the next stitch, go back into that same hole that you're coming out of, and then come out in the next round. So you can see. Okay, so you're just kind of moving down the rounds on a straight path here. So you're going to do it again, going into the next stitch, grabbing that hole. You're going to grab both of the stitches there. You see that V? We're going under both, and we're going to go back into the same space our yarn's coming out of, and then come down and pull. Okay, so we're tethering it down straight. Okay, see that? We're going straight down the head. So if you need to, you can always add some little pins, you know, like a sewing pin. You can put those in and around to kind of hold the ear in place for you where you want it. And that way you don't end up accidentally sewing the ear on crooked. I've done that so many times, you guys. So I do sometimes use pins. if I think that I'm not going to be able to do something straight, especially if it's when sewing the head of something onto the body, because half the time the head ends up looking the one direction or the other, which is really frustrating, you know, when you're at the tail end and you're in attachment mode. So now I'm going around through to the back side. So we're not putting much space in between the two sides of the ear, just enough for the thickness of the ear, but we're not, like I said, we're not stuffing this, so you don't want it to be a really chunky ear. We want it to stay flat pretty much, just like a cat's ear would. And make sure that you're going through every stitch, it just looks more clean that way, so you don't see any of the braid untethered. Okay. I'm not going to go into the middle of the magic ring. We're sticking to the side of it. So let's go back in. You may need to go just next to it to find a stitch, but stay out of the magic ring. Just stick to the outside of it. And once you're on the last stitch, going to go in, come out somewhere else that you have stitches that you've done. So you can see that that's nicely fastened. And now we just need to tie off. So we're grabbing one of the stitches that we did in the whip stitch, and we're going to go through, but before you pull it all the way through, you're going to go through that loop and then pull through. That's going to create a knot. Lift the knot up, you'll see a little gap space underneath. That's where you're going to go in and come out somewhere else. Then pull, and you'll see that that knot goes onto the inside. It gets tucked onto the inside of the Floppy Cat, and you can cut away this end. So go ahead and stitch the other ear on. Just to show you, when you're doing the other ear, you're going to do the same thing, but one thing to pay attention to is looking at it from top down. You want to make sure that the ear aligns in the same place with the whiskers, that it's the same distance from where the eye is. That way you don't end up with one ear crooked. You want them to both be in line with each other and with the face. So just keep that in mind when you're placing the second ear. I've had many ears need to be redone because of that, so that's just something to keep in mind. But I'll let you go ahead and whip stitch that down on your own, and we'll come back and do the legs together. All right, so it's time to attach the legs. Now you want your Floppy Cat to be able to sit and stand. So if he's standing, he's like so, he'll have all four legs. And then if he's sitting, he does that kind of, they call it splooting, where his little legs go like this. So what that means is that you need to stitch them with the lines going this direction, okay? So these 2 feet will be here and here, and then the back 2 feet will be here and here, okay? So the lines are going like that, right? Horizontal lines. So that's what we're going to do, and they're not very many stitches, so there's not going to be a ton of tethering needed, but you do want to go through all of those stitches, okay? So there's 3 on each leg. So I'm just going to go ahead and hold it looking at the face. You can use pins if you'd like to hold these down, but this is going to be where I'm going to put my first stitch here, okay? So now it's tethered. All right, and we're whip stitching, like I said. So you're going to go in under the full braid of the stitch, going back into that space, coming out to the next one, and pull. Sure that every part of it is attached, going into the next one, into the same stitch, continuing on down the line here, making sure we stay in a horizontal line. Okay. And then through this last one here. Okay, see that? All right, and back down into the stitch. Come back over to the other side of the leg. All right, so since we didn't put any stuffing in this little part, it will and should flop around for us or go straight if that's what we're aiming for. Okay. And now we're going to do one more stitch on the edges here. I'm just grabbing that edge, going back down in, coming back over to the other side, and then grab this stitch that you already put in here, and that's the one we're going to tether to. Just to really solidify those ends either side, and come out somewhere else now that you've gotten your knot there, and just pull that knot onto the inside of the Floppy Cat. Cut away the end, and we're going to do this on all of the legs. As I said, we'll do one more facing forward, okay, equal distance apart. Now that we see where it's going to be on the head, we'll flip it over and attach. Fasten it one more time on this side. Grab that little side there and come back across. Tie your strand off. Lift it up, find the gap space underneath, come out somewhere else, like so, and pull the knot onto the inside, all right? So, nice and floppy, but he should be able to sit normally, and he'll have the other two back legs here, and then standing he'll have the forelegs, so he'll have the ability to stand as well. So we're just going to do the back legs on our own, and I will come back and we will work on the tail. So again, just make sure you're holding the Floppy Cat on the legs so you can kind of see where you want the placement, and then with holding it, then go to the underside. And I find it's easiest just to find where that first stitch is going to be, then you can drop the leg, because unless you're actually I want to go ahead and go in this one, because unless you're pinning them, it's a little tough to get the leg to stay where you want it. All right, so doing one more double check on where the leg's going to be, that I like it. All right, so we've attached all 4 legs, as you can see. Next up, we need to do his tail. So you have a couple of options with the tail. You can get a pipe cleaner, fold it in half so there's not a sharp end, and then you can put it in the tail so you can bend it any which way you'd like, really. And then just attach it at the base. The other option, if you don't have a pipe cleaner or any wiring or anything like that, is that you would attach the base just as I'm showing here. So we can attach it like so, and you can just kind of curl the tail and just take a little stitch on the tip of it if you'd like. So just as though it's curled, it's not fully attached, but it's going to be attached on both ends, and that just gives it a, you know, you could attach it, you could do whatever kind of a swirl pattern you would like. You could have it coming towards the front and stitch that down however you want it, really. I'm going to do just like I said, I'm going to go ahead and tether it down in a few places, and that way it's not coming apart. Since I'm not going to be having any wiring going through, I'm going to just close this up, going across and just stitching it together so it's a little flatter and easier to attach to the cat. But if you do have a wire, you're not going to do this. You'll just go and whip stitch the full circle around the wire and to the body. So the other option is you could just leave it up, and then it's like a nice long tail that's coming up. Let's go ahead and stitch this down. So make sure you're in between the center of the ears. It's also the center between the legs here, so right in the middle. And we're just going to take a few stitches to tether the tail down. We're going to come up just above the tail. So this is going to depend on how you want to do your tail. So I'm going to have my tail kind of curling in the back here. So I want to do some more tucking stitches to tether the tail down to the head wherever I want it to go. Okay, so I'll have it go like that. Okay, so I'm going to have to pick up a stitch here at the tip of the tail and go back down. And you can go back and tether as many times as you want just to really solidify the tail there. Make sure that it's tethered nice and tight. So you really don't need to have a wire if you want to have it tethered to the body, but if you want to have it out from the body, then I would suggest getting that wiring. And you'll just tuck the other end into the inside of the head at the base there. That way no wires poke through. All right, and just hide the knot, and we'll come back at the end and do a final reveal.